I now call this meeting of the Davenport Community School Board to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Director Beck, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Our mission statement. The Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. Vision statement. Education that challenges conventional thinking prepares all students to compete in a global society and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Director Hayes, would you please read the guiding principles?
Yes, I'll be happy to. The opportunity, we provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaborations, we foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency, we share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communities.
Thank you. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you please read the goals?
Selected goals 3 and 5. It is the expectation of the board that district finance issues are resolved and staff will continue to keep the district in compliance with all state reporting mandates. And goal 5, an emphasis will be placed on student achievement.
Thank you. Are there any recognitions tonight? Seeing none. Presentations. First presentation tonight is the navigation to the long-range facilities master planning on our website. I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
So Brenda's going to walk us through just where our button is located and the information that's on there. So Brenda, you got a microphone over there?
I've got a microphone. Hi there. Just wanted to show everyone where the information on the long-range planning is on the website. It's right up front on our homepage. You'll find it right along the top, long-range Facility Management Planning Committee. And within that, I've got this very large, but you can see we've got all the minutes, the materials that were offered during those meetings. We've got the binder that the committee used. It's very long. I'm not going to open it right now. We've got the board presentations from July, the capacity study from 8/23, and then the presentation for the community input session. Again, those are 60, 80, 90 pages. Those documents are. If you go down just a little bit further, you'll see the recordings from the public meetings. You can watch those. And down a little bit further is the spot for your input. If you want to leave notes, a message, ideas, comments, use this form. We capture those, put them over onto a spreadsheet, and then that spreadsheet is available to the board at all times, but also they're reminded of the spreadsheet every week. Any questions about those?
Thank you, Brenda.
Sure.
All right. Now we will move on to student board reports. So I will turn it over to the superintendent.
Well, today was a very exciting day. We have our brand new student school board members with us today. We had our orientation earlier today at lunch where I believe we had 12 student board members. And it was an absolutely excellent day, getting to learn one another, getting to meet each other. And so for our very first time, we're going to have our student board reports. But before you do that, just do a brief introduction of yourself, the school you're at, and just very similar to what we did today, and then go ahead and give your school's report. So Jackson, we'll go ahead and start with you, and we'll head down the line. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for volunteering.
God, you got to put me on blast first. All right. My name's Jackson. I'm a student at West, and honestly, the best way I can describe myself is I'm a huge nerd. So there's that, and not just West High, but the kind of the West area, Walcott, all that area. So, do you want me to pass it along or do the board report now? Got it. So, just a kind of a quick few highlights. First time doing this, a little bit nervous. So, we had our homecoming game this past week or 2 weeks ago. Why am I forgetting that? Which we won, which was awesome. And oh, you want a reason to clap? We're 5-0 right now, ninth. Sorry, yelled at me. And we're ninth ranked in Iowa right now, apparently. So that's wow. We also had a successful homecoming dance where 750 people attended. I don't know how they fit that into the River Center, but they did. Just this past weekend, I got to go with the robotics team to St. Louis for a little bit of a scrimmage, test out our old robot before the next season starts. And then I guess the last thing I got is tonight we had our honors event, which is basically just keeping up a high grade point average for each term or each year. You can get different types of awards. And then just some smaller things kind of coming up. We've got our chess club and our cyber club starting up. So hope that wasn't too bad. All right, you go now. Thank you, guys.
All right, my name is Xavier. Sorry if I'm nervous. I've never done this before. My first day. So what did I do? I don't know what to do. So my name is Xavier. I go to Mid-City High School. I don't know.
You can just read it off. It's fine. I'm not gonna cry. You're fine.
Yeah, some positives of my school that I go to. That I've been there since my freshman year. I've known what goes on and off. My school, Mid-City, has really good student comfort and inviting environment to everyone around us. We have a very nice and constantly improving credit recovery plan thing, kind of. We have a very individualized atmosphere, like one-on-one time with the teachers, the principal, office ladies, etc. All that stuff. As Mid-City is a small school, we do represent, like, we do have a small school at Mid-City, so there's less chaos, less drama, just less students. There's more, like, more fun, more like personalized environment. One benefit our school has over any other school around in Davenport was we have a daycare. Many of the younger parents of our generation, like, they bring their kid in their daycare stuff. Yes. Let's see, one of the security guards we have over there in school is Mr. Crandall. He's one of the algebra teachers, along with the probability and statistics teachers. He's a great guy. He's always there for whenever you need him, and stuff like that.
All right, so hi, my name is Lily. I'm a senior at Davenport Central, and I'm involved in a lot of clubs at Central, like Elementary Mentors, Mentors in Violence Prevention, NHS, et cetera, et cetera. This week at our school, or this past weekend, our swim team placed first in the Burlington Invite, and our cross-country boys and girls team also won the Burlington meet. And also, our marching bands placed first in its class in 5th overall at Bands of America, which has never happened before, so that was a first. And this year we had 22 students be recognized as top students in the senior class for having 4.0s from 9th grade to 11th grade. And finally, our student body has decided to raise funds for a senior who passed away this past week due to violence. And this Friday at our football game, we'll be selling shirts to start the talk on violence awareness. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Landon Freeman. I'm a senior at North High School. I'm committed to serving both my community and my school as best as I can, and I do so through involvement in a plethora of clubs focusing on leadership and volunteerism. And I feel very honored to be here to represent my school and to provide a sort of connection between the student body and the district itself. As far as the school report, our Mentors for Violence Prevention group has grown twice in size this year, which is really exciting. And we're hoping to yield some good things from that. Also, we just had our homecoming week this week. And that was really fun. Our homecoming parade went well. We actually had a team I was a part of, Green Team, behind the float, picking up trash and recycle as the parade continued through the neighborhood and through the community. Also, we just this past week during homecoming week we had our Joy Club, Junior Optimist International, which is a volunteerism club that I'm a part of, had our penny wars to raise funds for the group, which we use towards Thanksgiving baskets and things like that for those who may need it. And we raised, I think, $230. So that was a really exciting thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we couldn't be happier with the group of students that we have this year. It looks like you guys got together already and planned who was going to attend what meetings, and what a wonderful start. So we're incredibly proud to have your voice with us here in the room. So thank you again, and I'm excited for the year that we're going to have together. So thank you, Board President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You all did a great job. I know you were worried about it being nerve-wracking, but you all did a great job. Thank you again. Board reports. Are there any board reports? Director Gordon.
On Saturday, I had the privilege of going to watch the Central Band at the Bands of America, where they won first place in their division in the daytime show and fifth out of, I think, 12 or 14 in finals. And then I was able to present them with their awards at the end of the evening on the field, which was super cool. So very proud of our Central Band.
Thank you, Director Hayes.
The board would like to extend our deepest condolence to the Lopez family, one of the students at Central that passed about a week ago. So we just want to extend our condolence to the Lopez family.
Thank you. Director Poston.
I'd like to thank Mr. Sneeden at Madison Elementary and teachers Luntz, Dugan, Jossart, Wilkinson, Goddard, and Dirks for allowing me to spend the day there and getting into their classrooms. I appreciate it and thoroughly enjoyed it. Also, thank you to Principal Wilkins and staff at Sudlow for allowing me to spend time in algebra, science, and Spanish class. I did learn a few things along the way. I brushed up on my algebra. And another thing that I'm going to be doing, I'm signing up as a lunch buddy at Madison for a third grade student. And I know a lot of you out in the audience are quite committed to volunteering at your school, but I would just like to encourage people to get out, volunteer at your school. What a lunch buddy involves is just spending about a half an hour over that student's lunch break. You can spend time visiting with them, reading to them. But just they will select students that just need a little bit more attention and need a little bit more guidance. And again, if you can break away over a lunch hour, sign up and get involved that way. It can be very flexible. It can be once a week, once every couple weeks, once a month. But again, this is sorely needed in all of our schools. And just to get these kids a little more attention and get them pointed in the right direction.
Thank you. Are there any other board reports? I attended the homecoming parade for North. My senior was too cool to walk with Dad, but I walked with my littles with Fillmore. So, and I attended the homecoming game. And congratulations to West on being 5-0. Cruzy's really got the program turned around over there. So, seeing no other board requests, I will move on to communications and open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. And then also when you come up to your microphone, please state your name and home address prior to making your remarks so we have that for the record. Director Potts will keep the time and we'll go 2 minutes. Up first, we have Lindsay Hines and Trish Moses.
Lindsay Hines, 112 Prairie Hill Road, Bluegrass. I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to you tonight. First, I want to start off by saying I watched the last board meeting and listened to person after person ask for you to come see what makes Walcott great. I don't know how many times a year the board is able to make it around to all the Davenport schools, but it's a great idea to spend some time in the 3 rural schools that continue to be your best performing schools in the district year after year. We have something special going on out here, and you need to see what that is and try to model the other schools in the district after us rather than shut us down and move our children. Secondly, if you truly want our honest feedback, then we need all the pieces of the puzzle. We all know that you have very tough decisions that have to be made, and hopefully with those tough decisions, some exciting new opportunities for our children. However, there's vital information that the families of Walcott, Bluegrass, and Buffalo need to know. How can you possibly vote on one of those proposed plans when you don't have all the information to make the best decision, not only for the district, but for our children? My child goes to Bluegrass, but we fear if you close Walcott School, which would be terrible, the boundaries will be redrawn to exclude him and the other children in our subdivision because we live right on the border of Bluegrass rather than in the city limits. The parents of these 3 small communities can't give you an educated opinion on which plan is best for their family or their school because we literally don't know where our children could end up. We are begging you to please be transparent and find out what those proposed boundaries will be. We keep hearing that you don't know what they will be, so as a parent and a Davenport alum, please put some time into that piece and complete the puzzle. Thank you.
Thank
Trish
you.
Moses, 307 South Grove Street in Walcott. I stand here as a concerned parent of a 2nd grader at Walcott Elementary. I also attended Walcott K-8 and a lifelong resident of Walcott. I understand you need to explore future avenues for the district. However, before you consider this long-term range plan, I challenge you to reflect on your efforts thus far to sustain or increase enrollment numbers. what have you done to reclaim open enrollments? Or is this decline acceptable? I would also like to let you know on the capacity study, page 2, paragraph 2, this seems very detrimental to me. It's very much of uncertainty. I quote, "This methodology is generally accepted as a reliable way to determine school capacities, but does rely on 2 key assumptions, variables, the class size targeted and the junior high and high schools, the utilization rate. If either of these are changed, even by only a few students or 1 less class period per day, the capacity can be changed significantly. Please take that into consideration as well. Our community supports Walcott Elementary fully on the current structure. Please celebrate Walcott Elementary."
Thank you. Up next, Emily Lyon and Joe Charchinsky. Sorry.
Emily Lyon, address is 3921 150th Street in Bluegrass. I am a proud alumni of Walcott K-8 and the parent of a child who attends Bluegrass Elementary. I am very disappointed to hear of the possible closure of Walcott Elementary. As a child, I grew up on a farm between Walcott and Bluegrass. Even though I attended Walcott School, I had a Bluegrass address. I have always felt and still feel at home in both of these communities. I am extremely proud to be a member of these communities and now serve as a member of the Walcott chapter of the Nu Zeta sorority, a community service organization. The closure of Walcott Elementary would be detrimental to both communities. It would negatively impact the growth of Walcott. Without an elementary school, the town would not attract young families, which would negatively impact businesses in our wonderful town. The ripple effect of closing Walcott Elementary should not be ignored. Families are already leaving our district, and I fear more will follow. If Walcott closes, where will their students go? We can all assume that they will be bused to Bluegrass, but no information has been given to us for this matter. If they do come to Bluegrass, what happens to our students? Do they get divided and shipped off to Buffalo? Have you considered the impact this decision will have on our children? How it will affect them mentally when they have already suffered so much in the past 2 years? How will it affect class sizes and ultimately their education? This is not a decision that should be made based on dollars and cents. It directly impacts children, families, and livelihoods of our community. Small town growth helps boost our local and state economies. We need these schools in small towns to survive and thrive. So please do not close Walcott Elementary. Thank you.
My name is Joe Tarchinsky. My address is 431 West Parkview Drive, Walcott, Iowa. And I'm here to, I don't want our elementary school to change. I moved to Walcott from Davenport about 5 years ago. My family, I have 3 kids they all attend Davenport schools, and we moved there specifically to send our kids to those schools and go to school at their neighborhood and walk to school someday. We'd just like it to stay the same way it is. Thanks for your time.
Thank you both. Up next, Kelly Quick and Lynette. I don't want to butcher your last name.
Kelly Quick, 404 West Parkview Drive, Walcott. I understand that you are not able to answer questions during this open forum, but I'm going to ask a few in hopes that you reflect on these questions before you sit down to make your decision. A few years back, Bluegrass was in the exact same situation that we are in, and the community did exactly what we are doing. At that time, rumor was boundaries changed to help fill Bluegrass School. My question is, did that really happen, and why can't boundaries be changed again? My next subject is the surveys. Surveys have gone out. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I hear they're slowly getting released. And you are all expecting us to fill these out. My question on this is, how does the board or the cabinet feel that this is okay to have people fill these out when we don't know what the boundaries are? You're asking parents to share their information when they don't know all of the facts. How are people supposed to answer the survey without knowing all of the details? That just doesn't seem right to me. My last topic is the options. My understanding is that there were 17 possible plans when this all started, and now we're down to 3. I would like to know how we got to those 3 and who voted on those 3. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Lynette Tarchinsky, 431 West Parkview Drive in Walcott, Iowa. Again, thanks for hearing our thoughts. I know I was here 2 weeks ago, and I'm probably going to be here until this is over, so we'll probably get to be friends. Similar to what Kelly said, I think that we've presented a lot of questions. 2 weeks ago, we have more questions. And I really wonder if there's a way that we could collaborate to get answers on these questions. I know there were some open forums where that opportunity was available, but now that there are 3 options and we realize that these affect us directly, I think if we had the opportunity to sit down with any of the board members or supporting staff or Bray Architecture just to understand the data and how it was gathered, how it affects the decisions, and why those 17 options were narrowed down to the 3 that are in front of us now. I think that would help all of us understand the situation in front of us better and maybe make even better arguments or questions or suggestions on how things might be able to handle or happen differently. So I guess I come in front of you tonight to say we're really nice, we're not mean. We'd love to work together and have that opportunity for some back and forth communication just to feel like we have a better understanding of what's in front of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. Up next, we have Stacy Alexander and Allison Warnicki. Thank you.
Good evening, Stacy Alexander, 223 East Parkview Drive, Walcott. And hello again. Walcott is a unique K-8 building. Please do not make us a cookie cutter. Please don't make our small towns cookie cutters, because it is a draw that we have these small communities. People move into the area because they want to have that smaller class size, that more individual one-on-one feel. I'm personally moved from Moline so that my daughter could have the same experience I did growing up in Bluegrass, then to Walcott to the west. That is something that is a draw. And I feel that we keep taking our unique, beautiful pieces and dropping them, leaving them, changing things up. When we're down in elementary and junior high, we're doing great with high school. We're getting these pathways. We're creating it for like the gateway for the CTEs. You want to go over here for music. You want to go here to learn this trait, this thing. We have that differentiation up at high schools, but we're losing it more and more down in the elementary and the junior highs. That is why with the small town, what we're allowed to see is that beautiful growth. We are able to do one-on-one, we're able to do more things with them. And I feel that it would be a detriment if we take away that and we cut down our small town atmosphere, our schools, our way of life. Please consider these, and thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Allison Warnicki, 204 East James Street, Walcott, Iowa. As a child, I walked to school every day just 1 block away, no matter the weather or how many supplies and gear I had in my bags for band and athletic activities. I walked there every single day. I moved to Walcott to our family-built forever home where my kids can also do the same. 3 blocks from our house to the school. In those moments each day that those children in Walcott walk or ride their bikes, they're getting the exercise to prepare their bodies and minds for learning. Walking to school not only contributes to improved physical fitness, but also sharpens attention and alertness, improves academic performance and mood, and teaches children skills for independence and traffic safety skills. I look back at myself walking to school, carrying my backpacks and saxophone, looking both directions as I crossed a busy street, passing by my neighbors that I knew well and felt safe walking down the street to school. Now I look at my daughter, thinking of how amazing it will be for her to experience what I did growing up. The options in front of us are putting our children on buses for up to an hour to start and end their day. Can you imagine an hour commute every day to your job? Now imagine the same scenario when you're only 5 years old. I urge you to fight for a new option in this planning that takes our children's physical and emotional needs into account, not just numbers and money. Fight for an option that keeps Walcott-raised children walking to their hometown school, because this is about their young lives that we are trying to protect and life lessons that we can teach them every single day. Thank you.
Thank you both. Up next, we have John Friddy. Did I say that right? And then Joe Aubrey.
John Freedy, 344 East Parkview Drive, Walcott. My wife Ann and I are the parents of 6 children, 4 of which attended grades K through 8 at Walcott School before going on to West High School. We currently have a 5th grader and 7th grader at Walcott School and would like to express our opposition to the proposed plans to close Walcott Elementary. Walcott School has consistently provided a cohesive bond between families in the community. From the vocal and band concerts to the yearly events promoted by the PTA, families of both elementary and intermediate students have come together, creating a type of community that people want to move to. As several people said at the last meeting, Walcott School should be the example of what to do, not something to be tore down. When we would attend academic award ceremonies at West High School, students from Walcott, Bluegrass, and Buffalo were usually the majority. This is a result of teachers who care, such as the ones here tonight. We understand the enrollment district-wide is down and that something must be done financially, but killing the academic success and growth of a whole town which provides property tax dollars to the district shouldn't be on the table. Many blame the mask mandate for the exodus of students going to Durant and North Scott. While that may be part of it, we believe a bigger part is the tolerance by the administration of disrespectful and sometimes violent behavior by some students. Having had children in the Davenport School District for over 20 years, we have heard many stories from our kids of blatant disrespect towards teachers and violent fights. Davenport West has a lot to offer academically. Our 3 oldest children now have successful jobs in engineering and computer science due to the AP classes offered at West and the mentorship of faculty such as Jason Franzenberg and Patricia Sheehy. As great as this is, when word gets out that the children may not be safe going on to high school, families make other plans by moving or open enrolling to districts that don't tolerate this. There will always be kids with behavior problems. What makes a difference is when there's an administration that has the backs of teachers who are there to teach and kids who are there to learn. In closing, I urge the board to think outside the box and add a 4th option that does not involve the closing of Walcott Elementary. No longer tolerate students who are habitually violent and disrespectful, and publicly advertise the academic and vocational opportunities at our high schools. If you do this, families will want to move to rather than leave our district. Thank you.
Joe Aubrey, 225 North Downey Street in Walcott. First, I'd like to echo the sentiments of the Walcott community in our opposition to the closure of Walcott Elementary. This would be detrimental to Walcott. I think it's important to stress that the impact would be not just isolated to the availability of local education options. The impact would assuredly extend to demographic and economic elements. I think many of us fear that the closure would simply be the first domino to fall, leading to the demise of our city. It has been stated on multiple occasions by members of the board that you've not reviewed the options for right sizing as is to be prescribed by Bray Architects and the FMPC. At this time, I'm aware of only 2 options to be presented, both of which include the closure of Walcott Elementary. I would ask that the board speak and help quell some of these fears for our community's future, as from our perspective, it already seems to be a predetermined pathway. I have a few questions. I know you guys can't answer them, but in your own time, if you want to email me back or whatever. First, what are the primary motivators for this need to right size? I understand it's probably lower enrollment, which leads to a smaller budget, which you're going to have to close schools to quell that issue. I also wanted to know, will closing Walcott Elementary offer financial alleviation to the district? From what I gather, the facility will remain open in an intermediate capacity. The teachers will remain employed. Won't the added need for busing act to increase the district's financial liabilities? And what information is being factored when measuring the impact of this potential change? Are you going to consider the demographic and economic impact to our city? Are there other options that don't include our elementary school's closure? I don't want to be combative with the board. I want to be constructive. I don't want this to be an us versus you scenario. I'm confident that there exists a compromise that will keep our city whole and cure the issues the district is attempting to resolve. At the very least, some understanding would be appreciated. For your convenience, I'll email each of you the questions that I had here, and thank you.
Thank you both. Up next, we have Alyssa Keel, and Austin Burt.
Alyssa Keel, 712 West 8th Street, Davenport. So I was asked to come here and speak tonight because I have a unique perspective. I'm not wearing blue because my students, I don't live in Walcott. My students have previously gone to Jefferson. I'm going to ask for a little group participation. Have you ever had your student come home from elementary school crying because they can't learn and focus in their classroom? Raise your hand. In Walcott. Okay. Have you ever had your student come home from school saying that they've been touched inappropriately by another student in their classroom and were told that they can't control their behavior and they would be sent to another room? Not addressed to you as a parent, just nobody contacted you about it? No? Okay. Have you ever had your student come home and ask you if they had to go back to school tomorrow because they were scared of being in their classroom? Have you ever, felt like your student was being swept under the rug because they had good behavior? So we moved our students out of Jefferson and into Walcott because there are smaller class sizes, because there's an opportunity for actual learning to occur, and because we want access to the Davenport district, but we can no longer tolerate what's going on in our inner city school. Walcott should absolutely be looked at as a model, not a closure. And when I voiced my opinion about that at the meeting I was here for a couple of weeks ago for the open forum, somebody up here told me that once I saw the renderings, I'd be really impressed and maybe, it would change my mind. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't care what it looks like. It's about the students, how well they're being handled, and what the opportunities they have in the Davenport district are. Walcott actually provides those opportunities. It needs to be kept.
Thank you. Austin Burt, 790 North Main Street, Walcott. I want to thank you again for allowing me to speak here tonight. I spoke 2 weeks ago and provided some updates that we've done as part of this campaign to create community awareness. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about what I do and how I make decisions in my practice. Don't laugh at this, but I created this chart. These are the decisions that we use in healthcare to make evidence-based decisions. If you take a look at the 3 circles, we use our best research evidence that's available. We combine that with the doctor's clinical experience and expertise, and also the patient's needs, preferences, and values. Those three components are really what makes up our decisions when looking at healthcare decisions. They're important that we assess all three of them, not just one. We take a look at, I created a model for evidence-based education. Again, we're going to take our best available research, which is the facility study done by Bray Architects. That's the research that you're going off of. We're going to combine that with a panel of educators and the input and experience that they provided. My understanding is that you had an administrator or principal or somebody from each building that went around and assessed each district or looked at each facility and building. And my understanding is that that decision was made to where Walcott was not on the closing blocks at all. There were no changes that were going to happen to Walcott, Bluegrass, or Buffalo in that input panel. And correct me if I'm wrong. And then the third thing that we need to look at is the students' needs, parent preferences, and community values. And as evident tonight, those show that this is not a wise decision. So I would ask that you make an evidence-based, informed decision when looking at these things. We need to look at all three components and not just one research article or research study that may not have the exact numbers that you need to make your decision. So, thank you.
Hey, sir, would you come up to the microphone again and state, I know you stated your name, but you stated your business address, and we need the home address for the public records.
Sure. 5833 Charlie Chase Lane, Bettendorf, Iowa.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brenda, did we have any virtual ones? I forgot to ask you that at the beginning. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone that participated in open forum. The board appreciates all of the input you all give at the open forum. All right. We will now move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes,
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as written.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Director Poston.
I'd like to have item number 7.03 and 7.04 pulled from the agenda, consent agenda for the discussion.
Okay. Brenda, we'll vote on the rest and then come back and do that, right? Okay. Are you made the original? Are you okay
I'm
with
okay
that?
with the
Okay.
amendment.
Director Beck, you seconded the original. You good with that? Pulling those? Okay. All right. So we have a motion and second to vote on the consent agenda minus 7.03 and 7.04. Okay. Everyone understands that? All right. Any other discussion on that? I'll call for the vote on the consent agenda minus 7.03 and 7.04, and we'll do those next individually. All right. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gordon.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on consent agenda item 7.03?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board accept agenda number 3 and 4 as written.
Second.
Seconded by Director Poston. Is there any discussion? Director Poston.
On item number 7.03, just for some clarification, when we discussed this at the last meeting, we talked about getting some information on schools that actually participated with this company. There was some information sent, but not anything to do with the any schools that actually participated in this program.
Thank you. Mr. Driscoll.
So we did follow up and ask that very question. Can we research studies schools that have participated that have shown success that we could share with the board. That is what was returned to us. So we shared with you, this is the statistics that they showed for us, and we can and will loop back around, but we do not have names of schools right now. Yes, just the research.
So you haven't been in contact with anyone that actually has participated in the program?
No.
Another question I have, when they talk about interconnected systems of framework and then theory of change, and then they talk about proximal outcomes and distal outcomes. So can you explain to me what that is? And when they talk about theory of change, is this all just based on theory, the information that was sent? I mean, there was like 64 pages that was sent to us. Is some of this just strictly theory?
No, so the interconnected part is extremely important. So what we're trying to do inside of our district is make sure that we have systems in place and making sure that they're not standalone systems, that they're actually connected. So what we want to prevent is having different teams only looking at individual items. We want to look at our system as a whole. So if somebody isn't performing the way they should or have behavioral issues, whatever that student may need, all of those systems are connected. And a lot of times in working with a district, it's really important to know that the company you're partnering with understands theory of change. They understand how change works. They understand how, in order to make a difference, who moved my cheese kind of thing. And so that's the premise of they're well based in that. So when Midwest PBIS comes to a district, which I do not believe is the case in Davenport, we are well down the PBIS journey. This is really a technical guide. We have had some turnover with inside of our PBIS positions, and we want to ensure the fidelity of the direction that we're heading with our connected systems. And I think that component that you're talking about just ensures that they know how to deal with change and moving the system forward. So no, it is not theory. The practices that we will be engaging with, that they will be engaged with, will be very research-based scientific methods of improving student outcomes. So we are very confident in this organization and its ability to move us forward. So it's not this isn't a theory. This isn't unproven actions. These are very proven methods. And one of the things that's very interesting to us is if you look at Boys Town, you look at PBIS, there's all different kinds of systems. There are common components that each one of those have that are really important to really good classroom management. You know, if you were to walk into some of our wonderful educators that are in this room right now, you would see some very common components that they do. They have very clear expectations. They have routines and procedures that are in their classrooms. And so those are the kinds of scientific-based best practices that we have. Now, this organization is going to be pairing with us more at a systems level, and it's tying in really well with some of the other initiatives that we have. So ensuring that everything is connected, that we're not in silos working through some of these issues is really the key component of this. So when we took our PBIS specialist from the district and is now a building principal, and we now have a new person in there, we really want to ensure that these people, along with our PBIS team, our core district team, have the absolute best knowledge that we're working with, and we believe this company can provide that to us. Now, some of the other questions that Director Kleindrom, I did not forward these to the board, so I apologize. The AEA has a PBIS expert, and Director Kleindrom asked, well, why don't we just partner with the AEA? That person was recently hired by Bettendorf. So there is a little bit of a void, and the AEA would utilize Midwest PBIS to train their people to begin to lead those initiatives in the region. So those are some of the questions. I believe those were the two that Director Kleindrom asked. So for us, being, I believe, a good chunk of what the AEA does, sometimes we overwhelm their asks, and we need more than the AEA can provide. Not very often. The AEA is wonderful. I'm not trying to go there with the AEA, but sometimes we need our own internal experts to move our system faster. And this is probably one of the most important initiatives that we have in our district to create calm learning environments across our district. Sorry, I'm a little...
I understand where you're coming from, and I'm glad to hear you say that this will help us move us along faster. As far as I'm concerned with PBIS, it is not moving fast enough. It's just been a slow drag. And again, I'm concerned for, coming from so much from the top down. I just hope that we're getting it into the classroom. The teachers are the ones that need that. And I'm just not sure if this is going to help, because it is just moving so slow. And we all know that discipline is an issue in the classroom, and something needs to be done, and it's just not occurring fast enough as far as I'm concerned.
Director Gordon and then Director Kleindrum.
You said that there are already teachers in the classrooms that are doing an excellent job with this. We've all seen that. And I guess my question then is, what is it about the people at Midwest PBIS that make them experts as opposed to people who are already doing it in the classrooms and getting those results, and their peers in the buildings look to them for advice and mentorship? Have we considered grouping with those teachers and pulling them together and having them lead their own buildings in those initiatives? And that kind of would, I think, one, maybe speed it up a little bit, because they're already there. They know the kids, they know the environments that their buildings are, and they know their peers who already respect them theoretically. Has that been considered? Not that I'm trying to add more to teachers' plates. I want to make that really clear. I know teachers are super overwhelmed as it is, but when you're good at something, you're good at something. So
I think that naturally occurs. I know as a building principal, you have somebody that is just outstanding at building relationships, and you would automatically pair your new lead teachers with that. We do have our TLCS program that does some of that, but specifically around classroom management, I believe that's something that we could enhance and look at. Like you said, what's the balance between asking a teacher to do something that would be above and beyond, and then what would that program look like? But those are things that we have talked about. We do have innovators that will work with that aspect of it, but definitely something that could be looked at in the future.
Director Kleindrum.
This is a one-year contract, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so in the spring, you'll be evaluating it to see if this really is something we need to continue, and the board would receive the data that says, yep, this really worked, or nope, this didn't work.
Absolutely. This would be right alongside with the work that we're doing with Judy Elliott. We had our first meeting with her, and I was really impressed with that. This goes right along with that, the improvement of our systems. So yes, this is not an ongoing issue. I do not believe. Mr. Driscoll, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I would add is I would encourage the board to consider PBIS as a framework and not something we're doing. We don't do PBIS. PBIS is an entire framework. And so to your point, Director Gordon, yes, absolutely. There are teachers that are doing an amazing job, a high number of them. And PBIS is way more than classroom management in that moment. PBIS is, what do we do? How do we support teachers? How do we respond? How do we respond as a system? How do we build a student intervention team that will provide targeted and intensive intervention? How do we respond when it's not? So there's so much more than what we are doing in the classroom. It is an entire framework that completely absorbs and wraps around our entire system. So it's not something that we're doing. And to your point, it's not going fast enough. Correct. Director Postian. We wish it would happen immediately, but it is an entire overhaul of our framework and how to create these entire systems, as our superintendent is talking about. And we are on the right track. But even if you're on the right track and you're not continuing to go forward, you'll get run over. So we have to continue to move down that track. And Midwest PBIS is the thing to say, yep, and we got to make sure we tighten this and we got to make sure we do that. This is right. Let's do the next thing too. So it's more than a thing, and it's a philosophy and a framework. So I just want to make sure that we understand the scope of what we're trying to accomplish.
And then my last comment is I'm very familiar with PBIS, the triangle. Most kids do the right thing. Some need a little direction, but you got that 1 or 2% at the top, which I think is often what is the overlooked part of all this. Is this group going to be able to work with the administration and clearly address that 1 or 2% that are causing the disruption that people are concerned about?
So inside of a framework, all means all, right? And a lot of times when we're talking about disruptions, behaviors, we are oftentimes thinking of the 1 or 2 kids per building. Yes, the framework tells us what we should do. The interventions, the plans, they should all intensify. We know in our district that is an issue. The framework for how we deal with things is there, but we need to start looking at programs and tools that are going to help our system. We have holes in our continuum. There's no doubt about it. And so when we bring to you things like SESI, when we bring to you these other components of our continuum that are going to help us with the students that have the most significant needs. So it is a framework for how do we handle that, because we want to make sure that students get what they need. And that's what this would be. We don't want to put students in a place that they don't need to be right away. And we want to make sure that we are giving students exactly what they need. But sometimes without a process, we'll go too fast, we'll go too slow. And so that's what this framework would do. Now, what you're referencing, those are different programs. And we need to fast track that. We need very crystal clear what a major and minor is. There are things that we shouldn't tolerate in our buildings. And we are moving just as fast as we can with those, defining those, communicating that clear expectations. That team of people over there, we locked ourselves in my office, and we are brainstorming this just as fast as we can for that 1% that we're talking about, for things that do not belong in school, because we have such wonderful things going on inside of our district, and sometimes we don't talk about those wonderful things because we're too busy dealing with, the community that comes in, the 1%. So I would say that it's a part of the framework and part of the things that we need to ensure that a process is there for all of our students, and we need to continue to develop our programs. They're not developed enough. And what does that look like for us? For that 1%. And those students have needs. They're very significant needs, whether they have individualized education plans or whether or not they're general education students. And that is definitely on our radar, and we're moving just as fast as we can with that, because that has to be done right, because that is the number one feedback that we get in any community we go into.
Any other discussion? Director Beck.
So just to confirm, we will reevaluate before we decide to re-up this process?
Yes, and annual evaluations, continuous improvement, probably where are we at, strengths, shortcomings, next steps, moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Postian.
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gordon.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on approval of bills?
Oh.
I thought you made your motion for 703 and 704. You did. You made them together.
Linda did.
Yeah, she made them together because yeah.
So is discussion still open then? Can this be discussed at the same time? All I need is a clarification.
The clarification you need, can the superintendent give it during the superintendent report? Is that because we've already voted?
Okay.
Will that be okay?
Yep.
Sorry, I thought. Okay, all right. Okay, may I have a motion on approval of bills? No one
Mr.
wants to pay the
President.
bills? Director Beck.
Thank you.
I move the board approve the following resolution. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the treasurer, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the period of September 7th to September 20th, 2022, noting voided check number 380686 to Reinhardt Food Service for the incorrect vendor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gordon.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes. Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Superintendent report.
Well, for my report tonight, I'd like to give a report on the overages that you saw in the personnel section.
Perfect.
Just came to me. So, in terms of our overages that you see over there, we are currently, so a disclaimer for anybody out there that's looking for a teaching position, we are hiring. We have just over 30 openings inside of the district. And right now, our teachers are teaching during their prep time and different times to make sure that those classes are covered. And those overages are what you are reflected in there. Jamie, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Sure. So you see most of them are at the high school level. So they are filling in for schedules. So those teachers are taking a block period to cover for vacancies. So it's not additional expenses to the budget. It's replacing a vacancy. And then there's a couple of situations on there where we have medical leave of absence, where we have teachers taking those blocks while those teachers are out on leave.
That concludes my report for the night.
Perfect. Committee reports. Finance Committee, I'll turn it over to Director Poston.
We met last week. Kevin Poskini is going to present. I'm going to take advantage of this large group, and we're maybe going to have a little education here. Kevin, raise your hand. Kevin is our CFO, does a wonderful job. Karen Klein-Jerome and myself serve on the Finance Committee along with Superintendent Snakecloth. Since we have so many here, I'd like him to kind of go a deeper dive into the report and do a little bit more explanation of what's all involved with our finance report. So, Kevin, thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 reports that we're going to talk about. We're going to start with our monthly report, then we'll go to key measures, and then we'll go to where we ended the year for our unspent balance. And for everyone's sake in the room, I'll try and go through these a little bit more in detail about what they are. Some of them are self-explanatory, some of them are not. So every month we look at our different funds. Schools are on a fund basis, not everything's in one pot, so you can spend it however you want. The board typically focuses on the general fund because that's the largest fund, and it's the fund that pays for for salaries, benefits, utilities, supplies, all your general everyday things. There are other funds to the right and on the next page. I'll talk about those very briefly, but we always focus on the general fund because that's where almost everything lies. So on the top half of this page is our revenues. We break them down into 4 categories: local, state, federal, and other. Local art funds tend to be property taxes. They could be local grants from like CRA grants. That is what is generated based on our per pupil allocation, the property tax portion of our per pupil allocation. And as you can see on this, we are running pretty steady as far as our revenue is concerned in the local at 65.2 million. The second line is our state revenue, which does tie into our local a little bit. Our state revenue primarily is our state aid dollars from the state of Iowa to bring us up to our per pupil allocation. And that is a little bit lower. I wanted to make mention of that. That's why I have that highlighted in yellow. As our enrollment declines, we lose those dollars from the state. So that is a reflection of where our state allocations have gone. The third item is our federal allocations. It's all of our title funds, anything that we get from the federal government. It may come via the state of Iowa. It may even come through the AEA for like Perkins dollars. But they're all dollars that are allocated through the federal government. That is significantly higher. I have that marked in yellow as well. If you recall, we have all of our ESSER funds, and this is where all of our ESSER 2 and 3 funds lie as far as revenue is concerned. And then the other is some miscellaneous items. It might be sale of materials, but it's very minor in the scope of a $200 million budget. So this year we ended with a $202 million, almost a $203 million total revenue. Activity fund tends to be student activities where it might be athletics, it might be co-curricular, it may be your fine arts. Student-led fundraising is your activity fund. Your management fund is there's really 3 things that go into the management fund. It would be your property insurance. It would be your workman's comp insurance. It would be your early retirement payments to teachers that have taken the early retirement, and unemployment if you had unemployment insurance. That is funded as well through state and local dollars. And then we have our sales tax. You'll hear us say silo funds. When we get to the bottom of the screen, but don't scroll down yet, but sales tax funds are what they often call silo. That is the penny property tax, or excuse me, penny sales tax that everyone pays. And it's divvied up across the state of Iowa on a per pupil basis. You'll see we had 17.5 million of sales tax revenue this past year. And if you scroll down, Brenda, to the expenditure side.
Kevin, could I interrupt for just a second?
Yes.
Would you just briefly explain ESSER funds?
Yes. ESSER funds is the state dollars that have, ultimately when we spend ESSER funds, we ask the question of how is the pandemic related to needs in the district? So it might be where students have lost learning when we were remote. So we hire staff to help get kids back up to where they belong. It might be for PPE equipment, for safety and security. I'm trying to remember the other buckets. But those are the primary ones. But it is about safety, security, student learning loss due to the pandemic. We always say, what was the cause of this? It's not that we just wanted to buy some supplies because it's for pandemic related items. Going down the page, these are the same funds as I described, and we break them down between primary categories, salaries, benefits, and so on down the left side. The one that we focus on the most is our salaries and benefits, those two. That tends to be approximately 80 to 83% of our entire general fund budget. Included in those salaries and benefits are those ESSER funds. We have spent a significant amount of money, more than $9 million of ESSER funds in those that would not be in the prior years. It also, purchase services and supplies and material tend to be a little bit higher because we also buy those type of things with our ESSER funds. The property and other objects tend to be pretty consistent. But you'll notice that we spent $196 million this past year. And if you saw that number above the $202.8 million of revenue, you're going to see that our balances are going to be improving in those funds, which is something the district has been striving for. Similarly, in each of the other funds, Brenda, if you'll scroll down to the bottom part, on that first page, you can see where our surplus and deficits have landed over the years. Those first 5 columns are general fund. Since that got cut off, you can see those are general fund, and you can see the years that we were pretty lean. But you'll see that we increased by $6.7 million, which is on purpose. Some of those reasons could be we had vacancies. It also was right-sizing our district as far as staffing levels. As our enrollment changed up or down in different areas, we adjusted our staffing levels. And you'll see that we had an ending fund balance of $35 million in the general fund. Similarly, you can see that across on activity, management, and sales tax funds, they did very similar things. We've been delaying doing some of our large improvements until facility planning is done. And then we'll be targeting those things and those items, those buildings, and utilizing those funds. If you scroll down to the page 2, this is also, these are more funds that we have. Our PEPL funds, which stands for Property, Plant, and Equipment Levy. It's very similar to the sales tax funds, except this is all local property tax money. There's a little bit of state money in there for various reasons, but it's not significant. PEPL funds and sales tax funds is what we will be using for our facility improvements, changes that we may be making going forward. Our debt service, we have two notes that are outstanding, one that will expire at the end of this year and one of this new year, and one that will expire at the end of the following year. Those were for 2 improvements that were made at Central High School in 2014 and 2015. That revenue is a transfer from the sales tax funds. Our nutrition fund is exactly as it sounds. It's our food and nutrition department for student meals. The other fund, 60, is our before and after school that is primarily derived by local dollars through tuition base. Our internal service fund is our self-insurance fund. That's where we pay for our premiums. And when we get to the bottom of that, I want to show something interesting in that. And our other funds are more for cheer funds for staff. It really does not belong to the district, but we have to account for it in that fashion. If you scroll down on the page to the bottom part, the $2.3 million in debt service that I have highlighted in yellow, that is our debt services of our 2 notes. That will be approximately that amount in FY23, and then approximately half of that in FY24. And then those 2 notes will be paid. You'll notice our surplus and deficit, other than in the other funds, which was our before and after school care. We have improved our fund balance from the beginning of the year, which is something to be celebrated. What is important in all of this is when you look at our PEPL and sales tax for our facilities, that's something we haven't focused on very much, but we will be very quickly focusing on those dollars. We know they're there. We're just working on through there. The other thing to be celebrated is our internal service fund, as we try and balance our need to pay for insurance, that we have about a $300,000 increase in our internal service fund, which is excellent. So we're starting to get to exactly where we need to be in funding that account through our benefits. Any questions on where we ended this is through June, but for the year of FY22?
Not so much a question, but a clarification. Save and Pebble funds can only be used for what?
Construction, remodel, additions.
Not for salaries.
Not for salaries, not for
Okay.
benefits. Capital improvements.
Thank you. Student board members, you got any questions on that? There's a lot to process. School finance is a whole nother animal.
If there's even the slightest chance that I could have understood any of that, I would be in a very different place right now.
It takes years. On the second tab, this is our key measures report. Every month, the board looks at our key measures of. This is showing where we ended the year. Every month, starting in September, we look at key measures for the year to date and where it's projected to be to the end of the year to help make decisions going forward, so the board can make wise decisions, factual decisions. You'll see. Again, I highlighted in yellow what I think is important in this, that our unspent authorized budget, we call that UAB. So when we hear that acronym, everyone understand what that is. That is our unspent authorized budget. What are we authorized to spend? The Iowa Association of School Boards, that's what IASB stands for, promotes a 7 to 17% unspent authorized budget to end the year, not to exceed 25%. The district over the years has been financially behind the 8 ball a little bit, and knowingly has been working step by step to bring this back to where it belongs. And you'll notice this is the first year in 5 years, 6 years, that we have now been in the range of what's acceptable. This range used to be 5 to 15%. The state has pushed it to 7 to 17%. We're just beginning at that 7.2% mark. So that is a big thing to be celebrated for the board and for all the decision makers. Part of that is when you go to that second set of box right there, box in the middle where it says 95.8%. That is the percent of the authorized budget that we actually spent. By keeping that under 100%, which is very important, you'll see in the past years they weren't. Therefore, it got us in financial trouble. We are needing to get that to 100% once we get that UAB target in line. So we purposely have been underspending so we can be financially healthy. And it says that right there is once it's at an acceptable level, we can spend our authority to 100%. 100% scary for me because I'm a little bit conservative when it comes to these numbers, but we need to get that 7.2%, probably in the 10 to 12 to 14% range to be really, for me to be comfortable. But we are in a good spot right now, but we got to keep paying attention to our spend. I would call that our spend. We know what our revenue is going to be, but our spending is what's important to keep in check. The third item is our solvency. Our solvency is doing very, very well. As we spend less and have more revenue, our solvency goes up. 12 months ago, I was very worried about that when we were setting the budget. With the vacancies and the way we've spent our money in the categories within the general fund, our solvency has really rebounded, and I do not have that concern going forward. On the page 2, I don't have anything highlighted on page 2, but every year when we certify our budget, there are 4 categories on that bottom box. This takes every fund, every account number into effect as far as what our budget, what we told the public we would spend. And in those categories, we have to keep track of instruction, support services, non-instructional, which generally is your food and nutrition, and your other. And we publish that budget. We amend if we need to. We did amend this past year, but you'll see those 4 categories stayed within the bounds of what we told the public. Any question on key measures?
Superintendent.
I just think about the the very difficult decisions that this board has had to do, and I think about the very difficult times that this board has led this district through. And if you look at those numbers, it's not the level of, it's the leveling of.
Correct.
The year-end percentages, and that is commendable work. What you guys have accomplished, the focus that this team brings to those finances. We've had to endure some very difficult times, and we're rounding the corner on our finances. We're not there yet. We have a lot of work to do, but this is such a positive sign. When we talk about growing excellence, moving toward the future, these numbers are going to allow us to do that. And we are going to try and spend every dime of that, Kevin. So we're going to try and make you as uncomfortable as possible. But at the same time, be fiscally responsible. If you look at any 2 numbers, those 2 columns right there tell the story about where we've been, where we will never go again, and where we are heading. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that this team of people have done, because there were some very hard decisions that were made in there. And we are at this point where we're getting ready to round the corner because of the decisions that you've made. And I just can't express that enough to you guys. You've done an outstanding job.
The other thing to keep in mind too, we've already set the table for FY23. We'll be looking at projections going forward, but I fully anticipate that these numbers will be a little bit higher when we end the year next year. So rounding the corner is an exact thing that we've done. Can we just stop looking at this data? No, we have to constantly look at this data. We'll continue to look at this data. We'll make decisions accordingly. Instead of being backed into a corner when we're in a negative spend, we'll be positive and we'll be able to make some decisions as we go up or down. The biggest piece I wanted to share is that 3rd document. This is a document the Iowa Association of School Board puts out. Everything on here in the past years, this is really boring stuff for people, but this is really our funding formula summarized. Usually the funding formula is about a 17-page document, so the state of Iowa does not make it easy. But these are the sum totals of each line that are calculated. And you'll see from FY 2013 to FY22, we have made some significant progress. I've highlighted a couple things in yellow because it's something that will be coming for the board going forward. We have a modified supplemental amount. It says other number 1. That other number 1 represents our ELL. The state funds ELL in a per pupil allotment as a fraction of a pupil. It's never enough to cover our expenses to teach our English learners. We ran a $1.3 million deficit. It's right to the left of that 0 that's in yellow. We anticipate it'll be approximately that. To get that authority to spend that money after the fact, we will be going to the School Budget Review Committee. The board will be asking the board to approve the School Budget Review application. The State Department of Ed does not have the document prepared yet, or I would have brought that tonight to review. But as a review, we will be bringing that to you at the next meeting. We anticipate the Department of Ed is going to delay the timing of when that should be approved. I really wanted to get all this locked down on the October 10th meeting, I believe is the next meeting, the next regular meeting. But that is not ready to go because of the Department of Ed getting their files updated. The second item that says special ed deficit, most school districts in the state of Iowa run a deficit. We have had years where we haven't run a deficit. Last year we had a very significant deficit to the tune of $6.7 million. And it's nice to see that number. That is the actual number that will be coming to you to also approve, to request from the SBRC the authority so we can get that authority back. Authority is the key. We reduced our deficit by $2 million in 1 year. Some of that's due to vacancies, but a lot of it is due to the special ed folks right sizing and making sure they use their special ed dollars effectively. As we've had student declines or student changes from different levels, they've addressed those. The only other part, if you scroll down just a little bit, Brenda, that's good. The two items that have to be manually put into this document is the other miscellaneous income. That is miscellaneous income that would be like federal funds, local funds, not state aid, and other. We had a $30 million miscellaneous income. A lot of that is due to ESSER, that revenue that we get from ESSER, and the expenditures. That is our total expenditures that was also on the other page. And I should have put this in bigger letters, but you'll see that we have that $15.2 million UAB. That is extremely important. To top it off, the other is, if you remember, if the board will remember when the school board asked us to explain why we have high categorical balances, some of the state funding are things for like teacher quality, TQ, professional development, teacher quality professional development dollars. We have homeschool assistant dollars. We have different buckets of money that are to be spent on those programs. We have effectively spent those dollars. If you scroll down just a little bit, Brenda, the state looks at those dollars, and you'll see our categorical portions went from just over $5 million to just under $3 million. Some of that was because we used the flex fund. And a lot of it was due to us spending the dollars in the categories that they belonged. The state has often looked at that and said, what is your UAB, your $15.2 million? How much is that categorical funds? They always have looked at schools and said, are you carrying your unspent balance on your categorical funds? For the first time in a long time, our answer is no. They want to see that. They want to see that that does not carry us. It doesn't tell the entire story when those categorical funds are more than your unspent balance. So that is also something to be celebrated. Any questions?
Thanks, Kevin. One thing I neglected, Jamie Weinzrell, Director of HR, also serves on our Finance Committee, and sorry about that, Jamie.
The big thing that happened this year too, with the state's website hasn't worked very well. They gave us an extension from September 15th to September 29th to get our annual report certified. We didn't need the extension. We certified on time. Many districts did. Most did not. But we were working ahead of schedule. In fact, we have auditors coming in the day after tomorrow to start their site work, which is several weeks ahead of last year. So it's nice to be able to be prepared for that.
Thank you for that very, very detailed report. Next committee report, Data Wall Ad Hoc Committee.
We are going to be seeing the motion come forth at the next regular meeting, and our team is continuing to look at data that we will be displaying on our data walls. And we recently had a leadership academy, and it would have been beneficial to have an additional screen in here. As you can see, these are kind of far away. It'd be kind of nice to have another one over there to display our data that we are putting out in front as our goal state.
Perfect. Thank you. LZAC.
We will have our first meeting on October 11th.
And LZAC stands for Local School Improvement Advisory Committee. I apologize. I forgot with the acronyms. Policy Committee.
We will meet next week, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes. And we're planning tomorrow.
Perfect. Long Range Facilities Planning.
We met we met last Friday and we had a lengthy discussion on our survey. They're printing about 40,000 plus surveys. We found one printer to do the whole thing in town, Davenport Printing, and they're going to send them out in burps. As they get some done, they're sending them out. So we should start getting back results probably in 2 weeks or so.
And to top that report off, as I feel like a broken record stating this all the time, I think there is a lot of misconception out there. I've gotten a lot of emails from city council members. This board has not had any discussions on pathways. It has been through the Long Range Facilities Committee, which included a staff member and a parent from every school in our district. So you heard it here. I know there's a lot of misinformation. The board has not made any decisions or anything like that, because all the emails that keep getting blasted say the board's decision, this and that is not true. The board has been gathering all the information to make an informed, transparent decision. And as everyone saw from the presentation earlier, it's very easy to navigate our website and see where all the meeting minutes and everything is located. So I don't know how much more transparent than that can be, but all the information is there. Legislative advocacy. I did talk with Brenda again about getting a bi-monthly meeting set up with all of the local mayors and city administrators that reside within our district to set up a bi-monthly recurring meeting. And I think that's all the committee reports. Items requiring action. May I have a motion on subject 11.01 Power School contract renewal?
Mr. President,
Director Gordon.
I recommend the board approve the contract with Power School for $210,435.20 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Is there any discussion? Student board members, like we talked about in the orientation, the way we're structured, we already had this discussion, and that's why we're taking action on these. And you'll see in a little bit when we get done with these, we will have discussion items that will roll on to a future meeting. All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Gordon.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Postian.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.02 renewal of the Transition Alliance Program Partnership with Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services?
Mr. Chairman,
Director Postian.
move the board approve the attached contract to renew the Transition Alliance program with Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services in the amount of $222,185.32.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Director Klein-Jerome.
I have one question. Obviously in the future, we're going to be using this program. Why are we just doing a 1-year extension? Why don't we do it at 2 years? Chunks.
Since this is through the Iowa Voc Rehab, which is really federal dollars, they only do 1 year at a time. And to note that $222,000 is really ends up being half that, because they use vocational rehab dollars to reimburse us 50% of it. So yes, it's $222,000, but it's a net effect of an expense of $111,000 to the district.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.03 board policies for approval?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
the policy committee recommends the board approve the following policies: 401.01, 605.03, 605.04, 605.07. Oh, I move we accept the policy committee recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Before we move on to discussion items, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break.
Hey, Ben. Deep breath.
Could all board members please return to their seats so we can start back up? Mr. Mansky, if you could please quit distracting our board members so we can get the meeting going again. Thank you. All right, we will move on to discussion items. The first topic for discussion is subject 12.01, Mississippi Bend AEA and Davenport Community School District Induction Support Agreement. I will turn it over to the superintendent.
The Davenport Community Schools already has a group of individuals called Induction Innovators, and their whole job is to work with first, second, and I think even third year teachers to ensure that they have a successful transition from college into into the workforce. When we reviewed our exit surveys through HR, one of the biggest things that we noticed out of a trend that we're seeing that has been a national trend where teachers in their first 5 years are not continuing on the profession, we are starting to see that trend in Davenport as well. And so one of the things that we wanted to do after reviewing that data and making a really informed decision is implementing a really robust system through the AEA to help assist our young teachers. They need more hands-on. They need more contact with an excellent educator, kind of to your point, Director Gordon. And so this program does that. Ann Craig at the AEA runs this program, and what we've previewed is excellent. And then the amount of hours that our induction innovators and the process that our induction innovators would be utilizing would really benefit helping keep our current educators that we have, because the reality is that we're in a nationwide shortage for educators. So obviously the best thing that we can do is turn to look inside and really retain to stay the educators that we have. So this is the proposal that is before us. I will front load this, is that we started this, and I know this is something we're trying to get better at, and so I'll take 100% ownership of this. This is something that we've kind of gotten out of the barn, and we're now bringing the contract forward because we really wanted to move forward with our new teachers. This was something that Diane Campbell brought to us, our interim director of learning and results, and we thought it valuable to do, and we couldn't wait another minute. So again, I know our goals are to discuss and vote. I see down there Director Klein-Jerome, and I'll accept the full weight of your authority in this moment. And this is something we're trying not to do, but we feel it's so necessary to support our young teachers in this time. So.
Director Beck.
So I think it's super important to provide support for younger teachers. I see that this is to utilize full release instructional mentors. Are we taking teachers out of the classroom to be mentors?
We have been doing that. So our teachers, this is part of our TLCS program. And so yes, we have been doing that for several years, actually.
But are we taking more teachers out for more hours by doing this?
No.
Okay.
We are utilizing the current induction innovators that we have. It's really changing the process of what they're going through, formalizing, and this is a really research-based method.
Director Potts.
Excuse me. Two questions. So is this supplementing our mentoring program that we have now for new teachers?
Exactly. So we currently have a process. We want to switch to this process, which is more
This will
robust.
supplant that.
Yes.
And it says we're to provide a induction program lead. Is that an additional expense that's on us.
We currently already have all of those positions in our district, so it's nothing new. It's we are utilizing the current human beings that we have slated for this, and we're using their program is essentially it.
Okay.
I do know at the AEA board meeting Tuesday night, there was a presentation on this, and Davenport along with Muscatine have their own staff, and this is going to help out with that. And there's like 6 other school districts that the AEA has to provide that to them. Are there any other questions? Is there any other information board members would need to feel comfortable voting on this at the next regular meeting? Director Posher.
So for this year, it's going to be funded through ESSER. So what's the strategy after this next year?
That's a good question. And right now, we could absorb that in the TLCS budget. So as we move forward, it will be worked into the TLCS budget. And it's a very allowable ESSER expense right now with retaining and recruiting teachers. Retaining teachers. And it could, I know a lot of times when I interview teachers, when you get to the final questions in the interview, sometimes they'll ask, what's your mentoring and induction program look like? What is the support that I am going to receive? And this really could be a tool to help recruit teachers as well.
Director Gordon.
I wanted to follow up because you said that it won't take teachers out of the classroom. So if they're getting 180 minutes of a month of one-to-one coaching interactions, how does that happen? Is it cutting into their prep time? Is it when their students are at specials, or how does that work without them being pulled out away?
So for that, there may be times where the teacher, they're received a sub, but they're on their prep time, they're before, they're after school, they're meeting whenever they can. The additional teachers being pulled out, I believe, I was answering the question under so are we going to take another 3rd grade teacher out and not have a teacher in the classroom? That's what I was answering that one. There will be times where you would cover, but the majority of these interactions are done on prep times before and after school. Observations, the fact that these induction innovators are full-time release, they can be in the classroom with them. So it's a pretty comprehensive model.
Any other questions, discussions? Student board members? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, would this be optional? Like if a teacher comes in feeling incredibly comfortable, is this optional for them?
No, it is not optional. It's a state requirement. Yeah, it's not optional. Good question.
All right. When is our next regular board meeting? October 10th? Okay. All right, so we will move on to the next subject for discussion. 12.02, renewal of the TAP project search partnership between DCSD and Iowa Vocational Rehab Services.
Mr. Flynn?
I would first like to state that in the subject line, it has TAP/project search, and those are actually 2 separate pieces. There was a mistake made as that was entered. So TAP you voted on earlier. That's the Transition Alliance program. Project search, though, is a 1-year internship program for students with developmental and intellectual disabilities between Davenport schools, the State Vocational Rehab Services, and also St. Ambrose University. And I've seen over the years most of you at the graduation ceremony at St. Ambrose. This is an outstanding program that gives students that apply and are accepted the opportunity to learn work skills, to learn how to be a good employee, and to put themselves in a position to be competitively employed at the end of the program. This been as you know, it's a renewal, so it's been a pretty long-standing agreement that has benefited a lot of our kids in a very positive fashion.
Director Beck.
This is probably for Kevin. So is there a reason the reason we can't do this we use this program, it's a great program. I think I can speak for my colleagues when I say we all support it. Why can't we do this more than 1 year out? It's the federal dollars. Okay.
Director Hayes.
Is there any way that we can get some follow-up information from the students that have graduated in the past as far as, are they still gainfully employed at the spots that they mentioned at that point, and maybe numbers of how many?
Absolutely.
Director Klein-Jerome.
I think last year there was only like 5 students in the program. I maybe I read it. I'm not sure. Do we know how many are in it this year? And is there any way of expanding it? Because we all think it's a great program, but it seems like there should be more students in it.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Clays the other night, and I think that right now it's about the same size. I think, yes, we could do a better job of promoting that within our buildings moving forward.
Director Hayes.
What exactly is the process for making those selections for those students?
Typically, the students are referred by the schools, by the family, and there are some small Voc resources as well, but there are some information nights that are out there. But typically, the referral, at least in my experience, has gone through the school. There's an application process, and then there's a team, and I have a note here. The project search instructor, the host school liaison, so St. Ambrose, and Voc Resources have a committee that approves or denies acceptance into the program.
Director Beck.
Sort of to Director Klein-Jerome's question, I think we had asked about that in the past, and I think part of the issue was the capacity to provide internships to the students because we only have the one partner, correct? St. Ambrose. So if we were able to expand the internship opportunities, we might be able to expand the students.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
I do want to say this is an awesome program. Superintendent Schneckloff and myself did tour this, and then it's awesome to see that I want to say almost every one of those kiddos has a job leaving that program. I think that's awesome, and they're so excited to tell you about that stuff when they're doing their graduation. That makes it all worth it. So definitely I'll support this 100%. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the next subject. 12.03, Bethany for Children and Families, ESSER request.
Very similar to what you saw with Family Resources earlier on in the year. We have an opportunity to expand some therapy resources inside of our buildings, utilizing ESSER for startup, obviously a very good use of these dollars, and something that's very needed coming off the pandemic and in general. And so Bethany is a great organization. Once the person's hired, their roster is built, then it can sustain itself as they can bill for those procedures. But oftentimes it takes these organizations, companies to write grants to front load to hire, or they have to get donors to do it. So in this opportunity, we can expand the services for our students because there's enough need. Mr. Driscoll, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. So thank you. As Superintendent Schneckloth was saying, so as a new provider comes on board, they receive their funding when they sit down and start providing services for each student. And so if I'm a provider and I provide services for maybe 4 students that day, but I actually have room for 6 or 8, until I get into that building and start to, meet these families and do the intake and whatnot, I can't have a full caseload. And so I can't get paid. I can't bring in. So this is that just to bridge that gap until these full caseloads are, and it's up to, it's not a blank check with unlimited. It's up to as, I think it's for 3 weeks and for only a certain amount. So there are guidelines to that. And that's in the description that is listed there that was provided for you. And that's what that means by the startup cost. And there are parameters and boundaries to all of that.
So once the person is, say we have Mr. Smith is our therapist, part of this comes on board next year and the year after, if it's still Mr. Smith, there's no cost involved. If the same position is filled by Ms. Jones, do we have to then?
No, that's just to begin this year in this moment, because it's by,
Okay.
We know, if you remember what Mr. Postcani said, we know that right now, ESSER, their stipulations to those dollars, they have to be in response to the pandemic. So 3 to 5 years from now, we can't still be calling on these funds for that, yes, or even 2, unless we were to rewrite this same grant next year while we still have access to it.
But if we still need that therapist and they have a caseload, would they still be able to bill for that caseload?
Yes, because we won't be paying for their caseload. We're just
Oh.
paid when their caseload isn't created yet. It's just to get them started.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you for those.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Are they originally signed to a specific building, or is it district-wide? Are they by regions, or how are they?
Mhm.
Are they
So our
elementary,
de-
junior high, high school?
Yeah. So our department, Director Courtney Wilson, the department in Equity and Student Supports, they also, within there, the program director, Lisa Baxter, does organize. She has a roster of who's where, how big their caseloads are, how big their waiting list is. Again, as Superintendent Schneckloff said, if anyone's a teacher, also if anyone knows any mental health providers, we would love to meet and hear from them as well. So yes. So to your point, yes, we will have full caseloads. They will be provided, or being funded by their own. Depends on who thank you for reorienting me. Depends on where they've been assigned. They know where they've been assigned. And so we look at each building. Oh, there is a provider at Garfield Elementary, but right down the road at Washington, they don't have one. Would it make more sense to split that? So there's just this entire network of all the providers and which building has which providers. And yes, they will be assigned to a certain spot, and they also know who's next up, and the principals know that this is all going on as well, so they can advocate for their building as well.
Any other discussion? All right. We'll move on to subject 12.04, a book study. I will turn it over to Vice President Hayes.
Yeah, in the interest of board professional development, there's a couple choices here. First of all, to see if we're wanting to do a book study. Secondly, there are the one book that Luann shared with us last week, The Governance Core by Davis and Folan. We can do that book, or we can do the book that we got at ISB last year, Miss Education by Brandon Fleming, and we already have that book. I guess thirdly, to add to that, do we all want to read the entire book and just have a group discussion as to what the key points that we got out of the book, or did you want to divide it up into chapters and go over it and just give a brief synopsis of each chapter and how it relates to us? But this is basically just for professional development for our board. We received the award last year as a group, and there were how many? Maybe 5 members that had enough points for ISB. But we're hoping that each member gets the professional development. Director Beck?
Well, I've been on board with the book study for a while. And of these choices, I would prefer Miseducated by Brandon Fleming, because I think, not that there's anything wrong with the governance core, but I think we get a lot of that information through our IASB workshops and training. And so I think it would be really beneficial and interesting to read a book from the educator perspective and this, a little bit more about the student perspective. So for me, that's what that is. And as far as breaking it up, I think probably breaking it up into a couple of sections would be ideal, because otherwise I'm going to forget and try and read a whole book in a weekend, and I don't want to do that. But if we have, I don't know, I can't remember the structure of the book, but, it doesn't have to be chapter by chapter, but, so we can meet maybe 3 times in the year or something like that. So we're not overwhelmed with extra stuff, but also can benefit from it.
And this is not to say it's a one and done. With this governance book, we can always go back and do it at some other time.
True. Yeah. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever read it, just for first choice.
Right, right. Anyone else? Can we just go around and get your opinions on how we feel about it? Or do we need to think about it and get back? No one wants to read a book?
Okay, I'll be the one to say it. I have read Miseducated. I read it last year when we got it. It's an excellent book. Do I want to do a book study? No. I'll just put it right out there. I've got a lot on my plate right now. And like I said, it's a great book. I encourage everybody to read it, but I just don't have time right now in my life to go back and reread that book with everything else. But that's me.
Yeah, I'll do whatever the group decides to do. It's fine with me.
I also read it last year as soon as I got it, and it's phenomenal. And I do want to read it again someday. I don't know that I can commit the time to it right now unless we do spread it out over the course of a year.
If you tell me it's on Audible, I'm down. That's the only way I read books now, driving. So there you go. With all the windshield time from driving for work, So
it sounds like we may need to record it, read it and record it and pass it to you. Okay. Well, those that have already read, Jackson?
I just wanted to say partially to what Ms. Klein-Jerome said. Now you know how we feel.
Yeah, I know. We do have busy schedules. Sometimes I meet myself going and coming. I don't know whether I've been going or what's going on, so I certainly understand it. But
Do they still have Cliff Notes? That was very handy when I was in college.
say, well, maybe those that have read can brief the ones that have not read, and we can share it. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll come back to it, and whatever information we need to compile, maybe we can go through Brenda and pass it on and decide what we're going to do with it as far as an action item on the 10th. Okay.
Thank you. Next subject is 12.05 board policies for board second discussion. There is like a whole list of these. Does anyone have any questions on them? And then I would turn it over to Director Beck to answer questions. All right. Subject 12.06 are board policies for first discussion. Director Beck.
All right. So the first one, policy 400, is actually one of so the ISB system has these 100, 200, 300, 400. They're basically a policy that says what that section of policies is for. So the policy committee just needs to know if the board wants to keep these or not. So I will go around the table. Do we need a policy that describes a section of policies? Director Klein-Jerome?
We have passed that in the past, that, you know, the 100, 200, 300. So I don't see the harm in putting it in there. I mean, it just kind of tells you, here's what you're going to find in this section. So I'm fine with it.
Okay. Director Postian? Director Potts? All right, cool. And then the other one is just a name change from to payroll periods and deductions. It used to just be called payroll. So. All right, we will have a second reading on those next time, and then they'll come up for a vote.
Thank you. Administrative reports.
None at this time.
I knew you were going to say that. Board request. I got one. Are there any other board requests? All right. Name of board member making the board request would be Director Hayes. Date of request, September 26, 2022. Item requested would be an agenda item. Description of request. I am asking that we hold a CAL meeting at Walcott. Why are you making this request? We have had open forum requests with invitations to visit the school. When would you like this? As soon as it can be arranged. Is there a second? All right. Board reflections. We will start with Director Gordon.
I would like to formally welcome our new board members. Congratulations, guys. We're lucky to have you here. I hope you enjoyed as much as we all do. And also, I wanted to congratulate the district on pulling out of the red these last few years with our budget. And as Kevin said, into stability and for certifying on time. That's a big deal. Good job.
Thank you, Director Potts.
I would say my reflection is that having our student board members with us, they grow in this position to become more and more inquisitive and speak their minds a little more, and that's important. It's a point of view that it's been a long time since we were in school. Long time.
Longer. Probably the longest of everybody up here.
As a student.
Director Hayes.
The AEA Induction Support Program, the welcoming of the student board members, and also the financial reports were highlights for me tonight.
Thank you, Director Kleindrum.
I appreciated the information at Open Forum. I also have some of the questions that you raised already written down that we have not yet discussed and addressed. So I hear what you're saying because I already had those thoughts as well. The finances in a great place. UAB ratio finally at 7.2. Great job, Kevin, because it was a heavy haul there. And that the solvency is at 15.4. When you go back and look at the history, we've made great gains. Not ready to stop. We need to keep going, but that's a great thing.
Thank you, Director Postian.
I'd like to echo the same thing. Thanks, Kevin, for going into depth a little bit on the discussion on the finances. Thank you for everyone that participated, everyone that's here that attended the meeting. Appreciate all the input. And again, we're hearing what you say, and so that will help with making a decision down the road. And thank you to board members, student board members, for stepping up and filling these roles. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Beck.
Yeah, I always appreciate when people speak at open forum, and because it gives us a perspective that we might not have. Or if we do have, it's nice to hear it again. And so thank you all for everybody who came out again to speak. And again, I have another list of questions that I've gotten from the open forum comments. And then welcome to our student board members. Happy to have you guys here. And then also, yeah, can't thank Kevin enough and the Finance Committee for their work over the last couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you. Student board members, this is the part I talked about. You get to talk about your reflections on what we discussed at the board meeting. If you don't feel like doing it tonight, you can just pass, but this is kind of how we end our meetings, so.
Go ahead, Landon.
I don't think I'm nearly as knowledgeable as I should be to really make any comment on the things that were discussed in open forum. But it's really encouraging to see. It's really encouraging to see kind of both sides of the table working together, because we all have the same goal, right? We all have the same care for the children, right? And so I just, it's really encouraging to finally see that in person. And besides that, I'm super excited to be here.
So before we go any further, just all of your comments must be connected to something that was on the agenda. We didn't front load you with that this morning. We need to add that to our orientation tee. So just reflecting on something that happened on the agenda. So awesome. A great example, Landon.
Same thing as Landon. I'm obviously not as knowledgeable, but everything that I've kind of learned today, it's kind of nice to see both sides of it. As Landon said, I believe that the situation with the open forum, I'm happy to be knowledgeable about that now, or somewhat knowledgeable. And let's see, the discussion topics, I am knowledgeable about those now, so obviously I can take those back with me as well. And yeah, I'm excited for my next meeting.
Oh gosh, where do I start? Well, number one, hey, good job, whoever got us out of the financial rut we were in. I know, like I don't know who does that, but seriously, nice. Yeah, really happy about the therapist. I don't exactly know what to call it. The therapist thing is what we'll just call it. I know a lot of people who have struggled with a lot of mental health issues throughout their time in school, be it here or anywhere else. So the fact that they're going to be able to have a easier access to that support, especially in their building, is very encouraging. And I really think that that's going to help every aspect of our buildings, from disciplinary to grades, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to see that happen. Same thing, obviously I got to be a bit more vague, but very eye-opening the open forum was. Was not a Walcott kid. In fact, I was a Fillmore kid, so there you go. You're welcome, Gosa. But yeah, very productive. Had a lot of fun. Can't wait to come back, hopefully.
Sure. If you don't feel
Sure.
comfortable, you don't have to. It's all good.
Don't have to what? Oh, him. Sorry.
Just want to say thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to meet you guys and listen to what you guys have to say about the community in the school district.
Thank you. Superintendent Schneckloff.
Well, people ask me all the time, what are today's kids like? You know, you work with kids all day long, and it's students like you guys that let me know that the world's going to be okay. The world's going to be in great hands. You guys are outstanding human beings. Got to meet you guys today, and we're fortunate to have you with us. And so that is an absolute. The honor is ours, and we mean that. And you are going to enhance what we're doing here at the table. I couldn't be more proud of the financial work that this team has done. October 27th, 2018, when things started happening, that was the very first thing that this group of people had to tackle, and you did not run from that. You ran towards it, and you took on that responsibility like I've never seen a group of people do. And there's very difficult things that we still have to do, and I know this group is not afraid to make those decisions. The open forum it's excellent to hear people's voices. And the board really does mean that. So I hear from them all the time. So productive meeting.
I thought everything went good tonight. I appreciate all the feedback during open forum. Student board members, I appreciate all of you giving up your lunch hour to hang out with me, TJ, and Brenda, and then maybe miss a couple classes. I know your hearts were broken, but we appreciate that. And thank you. I am so happy to see a representative from each high school, West, Mid-City, Central, and North. That is awesome. It's been a while, and we greatly appreciate that. And I'm glad you were all able to start early. You guys gave great input. I know it was a little nerve-wracking with a lot of people and stuff like that, but you all did a great job. So thank you very, very much for taking time out of your Monday night to kind of hang around for the whole meeting. And with that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Meeting adjourned.